Good morning, everyone. Oh, wow, enthusiastic. We had a lot of coffee, huh? So I'm here to talk about the two-door sports cars. My name is Michael Tam, as Manny welcome said. I'm the product manager of two-door sports cars. Been doing this job for 6 years now. I don't know how time flies. Let's get started. Brand new 9922. We revealed this last year. Lots of new models already. Would help if I turn this on. And these are all the models we've already released. We've had 9922 Carrera, standard Carrera. We've had Carrera T, Carrera S, Carrera GTS, and GT3. So we'll be going over that in this presentation. So we're going to get right into the deep charts. Everyone wants this, right? Yeah? No, I'm kidding. We can save this for later. So before we really get into the new models, let's just take a quick retrospective here at 9921. Not that it's completely over. We're still selling the Turbo S's, GT3 RSs, and the Turbo 50-year model. So we're still just finishing up the tail end here. But we've already had a record number of unique models for the 992 generation. We started out celebrating the 1950s with the Targa 4S Heritage Design Edition with the corduroy seat centers. We then celebrated the 50 years of Porsche design with the really cool Targa and also a timepiece to match. Then we celebrated the 1960s with the Sport Classic. And in case anyone doesn't know that car, that's a rear-wheel drive manual transmission turbo model. That was an absolute stunner of a car, super popular. Then we had the wonderful 911 Dakar with the off-roading abilities and with the really cool rally design package. If you were at a previous Tech Tactics, you may have heard the presentation on that one. Then we made some special cars for America because, of course, 911, biggest sports car market is America. So we created the 911 GTS America Edition, celebrating the roadsters of the olden days. And secretly, that was actually my way of putting the last of the manual transmissions in the GTS. So in case anyone didn't get that hint, you kind of missed out on that one. So that was really cool. Then we created the 911 GT3 RS with the Tribute package. Tribute to the Carrera RS 2.7 with that cool green livery you see there. Even managed to sneak some American flags on the side of the wing plates there. Somehow managed to convince some German factory workers to apply that in the factory, and they were very weirded out by that. Then we had the wonderful 911 ST. Everyone knows that is still a really, really popular model. Wonderful, wonderful powertrain with the lightweight clutch and the lightweight flywheel is awesome car to drive. And then, of course, finally, celebrating the 50 years of 911 Turbo. I don't know where time went for that either, but apparently we managed to make it 50 years of Turbo. So we had that cool model debuting Turbo Night on the 911 model for the first time. So we've had so many cars. Even though we've only done half a generation of 992 so far, this is already nearly the numbers of the previous generation. This is all of 996 was 65,000. All of 997 sales in the US was 64,000. And all of it in 991 was 73,000. We're only halfway through 992, and we're already at 55,000. It's absolutely incredible how the popularity of 911 continues to grow year after year. The US. These are US sales. Yeah, no, there's a ton more across the world, of course. Yeah. We're usually roughly about a quarter to a third, depending on the model, of the whole world. So, yeah. So, just a quick poll and get some arms stretched here. Who here owns a 992? Okay, less than us, right? 991? Okay, 997? 996? Air-cooled? Wow. And ID Buzz. I want to talk to you later. Awesome car. Oh, man. Awesome. Okay, we got more air-cooled on the ground. This is going to be interesting compared to yesterday. Thank you again for your wonderful loyalty. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you guys keeping the whole 911 alive. So, on to 9922. Here we have a wonderful example of the standard Carrera model with the new Lugano blue color. Really stunning color, replacing Shark Blue. The 911, always an icon. I don't need to tell you guys this. With so many air-cooled in this, I'm going to skip over this. Over 60 years now. 8 generations of 911. The student among you might count that there are 9 911s in this photo. So we've snuck 9922 up here because, budget cuts. We can't do a new image. So let's put it on top. Design. We all know how the iconic design is carried over generation to generation with the contoured hood, the design on the front, the round headlights, and just the overall silhouette of the car. It's always immediately recognizable as 911, and the 9922 is no exception. Starting with the standard Carrera model, we've just given a small little horsepower increase, 9 horsepower up to 388 horsepower. But the numbers don't tell the full story. We might say 0 to 60 in 3.9 seconds. For anyone that's been reading car magazines recently, like, Motor Trend or a couple other outlets, you might have seen they've got some really quick times they tested, almost like 3.3 seconds 0 to 60. This standard Carrera is no joke. It is a lot of car you're getting for your money. So, amazing powertrain. This is actually exactly the powertrain you get from the old 911 GTS. You get the new big turbos. This was the old GTS motor that used to make 473 horsepower. But with the new emission regulations and everything, we did have to alter the tuning a bit. So that's why it's been detuned to this. But hardware-wise, you are largely the same engine. Of course, we always want to know, how do you identify the newest 911? That's always a top question, right? Well, this one's really easy for this generation. We don't have any lights on the lower front fascia. So the turn signals and that running light on the lower area, that has now been all integrated into the headlight. So turn signals in the headlight, running lights in the headlight. So that allows us to open the air intakes in the lower area for more cooling down to the radiators. So immediately recognizable across the model lines. Later on, definitely check out this 911. When the turn signals blink up, it's actually really cool how the ambers come out on the headlights, right? Yeah. And then on the back, there are some small subtle differences there too. The light bar has been carried over, but the lower lighting element has also been updated. A little bit wider of a turn signal there. You'll notice that all new 911s now have the license plate moved up. That way, the new turbo intercooler can actually duct all of its hot air straight out the bottom in a very straight line path. So that is actually kind of new. Some of the older models had the license plate up there, but this one, all of them now have it moved upwards for that. On top, you'll notice the air intake rail has also been simplified a bit to actually improve the airflow going down to that intercooler and the air intake. So definitely check that out. Later on, I'll do the cardinal sin of popping a spoiler while you're parked and show off that intercooler just for a minute. In the interior, I know there's been some controversial things here. We've kept very much largely the same horizontal dashboard and the old historic look, but we now have a fully digital gauge cluster. Yes, I know, I've heard some of the comments. The big good news is you can finally see your fuel gauge. Small little benefit there. A really cool layout. So, for example, you see here with the 5-gauge cluster layout, later on, definitely sit in the car and check that out. With the Sport Chrono package, you can even rotate the tachometer with the red line facing 12 o'clock. Like the old cars where you pop out the gauge and rotate it, we can finally do that digitally. It's really revolutionary technology. On to the start button. So no longer the little fake little chuck to start it up. It is now a digital button. I know some people have also said some things about that, taking that feedback into account. But yeah, otherwise the 911 interior is largely the same. Just to keep up with the competition and keep up with the general market expectations, one of our job as product managers is to monitor the standard equipment coming across the industry. So we've added some small things just to keep the car up to date. So for example, all 911s now have the Matrix Design LED headlights with auto high beams. Auto high beams are finally standard. You don't need to upgrade your headlight anymore. Lane keep assist, don't worry. There's now a button right under the stock, one push to turn it off, and it remembers it when you start the car next time. So if you don't need it, just hit the button, turn it off, forget about it. Home link. For any of you 992 owners, we fought hard. We put the home link buttons back up there. There are now 3 buttons you can program to open your garage. Very easy to use. You don't need to fiddle with the screen and everything. And then some other things like, heated steering wheel. We finally have a smartphone charger inside the center compartment. We actually duct air conditioning into it to keep your phone cool while your phone is charging. So very, very advanced there. And then every 911 now also has a drive mode dial. You don't need to go hunting for the sport button somewhere else on the dashboard. It's just easy, within reach, very close to your hands already. Quick twist of the knob and you can get into sport mode, you can get into wet mode, and then if you order Sport Chrono, you get a nice cool red sport response button just like the 918 now. So just some of the equipment you get. Engine, like I talked about, carried over from the last GTS. In this case, again, making 9 more horsepower to 388 horsepower. Really nothing crazy else to talk about. This is mated only with the 8-speed PDK. Which brings us to the Carrera T. The Carrera T is a popular model, to say the least. And this is really where we offer the manual transmission. The manual transmission has been largely popular across the last 2 generations of Carrera T. For 9912, we had 68%, and it only went up with 9921 Carrera T. 70% of American buyers selected the manual transmission on Carrera T. And as a result, this Carrera T only comes in a manual. No PDK option. If you want PDK, go get a Carrera. Go get a Carrera S. But this is really designed for the manual transmission enthusiast. And why is it available in a cabriolet for the first time? Well, over a third of all 921 sold in the US are open-topped in some way, whether a cabriolet or Targa. Us Americans, there's a good portion that enjoys open-top weather. Maybe not in this current environment. I don't know why it's so cold here. From Georgia, this is really weird. But yeah, that's why the Carrera T is available in a cabriolet now as well. Some cool take rates just from 9921. 74% of you guys ordered the extended range fuel tank. A lot of people want that extra couple gallons. 61% order rear seats. This is interesting because right now we're seeing on 9922, which now has rear seat delete standard and no cost to add it back. A standard Carrera model and Carrera GTS is over 90% order rear seats. So Carrera T, we see a lower percentage of that. Over a third still keep that rear seat delete. So it's kind of interesting. There's maybe a more lightweight focus on some Carrera T buyers. Over 39% order rear axle steering. And now, because of that also, Carrera T comes standard with rear axle steering. The technology has trickled down, and now even T gets its standard. Front axle lift, 36% take rate, pretty popular. And then full bucket seats, 6%. I guess not everyone wants the most aggressive seat, but it is really cool that it's still on offer. So the Carrera T, same engine as the Carrera, unchanged, 388 horsepower, 331 pound-feet. The only reason 0 to 60 is a little slower, again, manual, you know. Doesn't get launch control, or, well, it gets a manual transmission launch control, so be a little more gentle about that one. How do you recognize a Carrera T? It's pretty simple ways. The mirrors will always be some different color. So for example, here you see the optional gentian blue package. That comes with black high gloss mirrors. A standard Carrera T comes with vanadium gray mirrors. You might remember the last one had agate gray accents. This time it's vanadium gray because that's a new color. So you always notice there's a different mirror color, even if someone deletes the decals. You'll see with the gentian blue, you get the blue wheel accents as well. With the standard one, you get vanadium gray accents. On the back, you'll notice sport exhaust is always standard in black, so that might help with it. The Carrera T logo matches the package you've selected, and as well as the slats will also kind of match. And the interior, they did something really cool. They brought a kind of a plaid into it. You can get in both the standard black color or this gentian blue package with some cool stripes on it. So just a little touch to it. And of course, when we told the Germans we love our manual transmissions, they went overboard. They really went overboard. You know, put my initials on it because I love the car. Michael Tam. No, manual transmission. The wood shifter is a really nice touch. It's a laminated walnut shifter, giving homage to some of the older models with wood shifters, like a Carrera GT, right? The aluminum inlay on top is really cool. You just get that slight cool touch when you first touch it before you grab onto a slightly warmer wood. It's a really nice feeling wood shift knob every time you go to shift. And what's cooler is it's connected to basically the same linkage as the GT3. So you get a very positive feeling shift to it. Very notchy, very easy to engage. And there was no more 7-speed, you might notice. The 7-speed is gone from all the manual transmissions for Carrera T. Really wasn't necessary. We don't do Autobahn speeds here and everything. And it just makes the gate a little bit simpler. A very simple, logical 6-speed. No going too far to the right. And it's like, oh, did I hit 5th? Did I hit 7th? A little easier to use there. And on top of that, that saves about 2.6 pounds. So small little touch. They keep going with those overboard touches with the sticker on the rear side window, even on the cab. both the rear side windows get one of these stickers. Feel free to peel it off when you get the car. And then if it wasn't enough, you can order a projector on the ground to show that you're driving a manual. Yeah. They really put it all out there. It is a great anti-theft feature, I will say. So yeah, that's the Carrera T in a nutshell. Everything else from Carrera T from last generation, you already know. It has Porsche torque vectoring. It's got the lower pads and sports suspension. Things that you aren't normally available on Carrera models. So for the sporting enthusiast, definitely get the Carrera T. Onto the Carrera S. We've already announced the Carrera S, and it'll be going on sale very shortly. The Carrera S is mostly unchanged. There are a few things. So you might see in the back, sport exhaust is also now standard on the Carrera S. Simplifies the offer a bit. And the engine, 473 horsepower. That's a 30 horsepower increase over the last Carrera S, and that is exactly the same horsepower as the last GTS. You are essentially getting the GTS model from last generation for S pricing now. So it's, a bit of a trickle-down thing. But yeah, the torque is unchanged. Again, with this new emissions regulations and the new particulate filter, it does have some alterations in terms of tuning. But otherwise, hardware, again, same turbos as the GTS, same turbos and now the Carrera. So 3.3 seconds 0 to 60, we all know that's, again, understating. Going to be amazing. How to recognize a Carrera S. Usually you can see the red brake calipers unless someone blacked it out. Otherwise, it looks like a Carrera model. Yeah. And then onto GTS. This is really where the new technology comes in. The GTS has never been as different to the S as ever before here. With the new T-hybrid powertrain, it really brings it to another level of performance. 532 horsepower. These used to be turbo numbers. 0 to 60 in 2.9 seconds. You used to need to get a turbo before you get to these numbers. 3.6 liters versus the old 3 liter. This is a whole new motor. It has one single turbocharger, and it's electrified. No more 2 turbos. 1 turbo can now create all of that horsepower. And how do you recognize a GTS? That is also more differentiating than ever before. It used to be if you order sport design on a Carrera, you might look like a GTS already. But now, because of the increased cooling requirements and everything, the GTS has an absolutely unique lower fascia. You can't order a Carrera. You get these vertical slats that actually open and close depending on the kind of driving situation you're in. But anytime you're parked, they will open up and they look really aggressive and very good in person. On the back, you also get an absolutely unique exhaust arrangement because of this whole different engine. This actually gets in a more centralized place, sport exhaust as standard, and the air outlets for the intercooler are now to the left and right of that exhaust versus on the center part for the Carrera models. So a little more aggressive lower rear fascia as well. On the interior, of course, you can still get the old full bucket seats if you'd like on this car and get the rear seat delete. The gauges, like I was talking about, you can see the rotated tachometer right there, where the red line is much closer to 12 o'clock. So that's one of the sport mode displays you are able to select. The red sport response button I was talking about is right there on the drive mode dial. Of course, this car, because of how the powertrain design, comes PDK only, which is, again, why we were so important to emphasize the Carrera T and being available so early on. Just a little preview about some of the customization coming to 911 just in the coming months. We're going to have deviated seat accents now. Instead of just the old school seat centers is changing up that color, we have now a new pattern that goes around the border of the seat. That is a lot more visible and a lot more interesting in terms of a color contrast. You can order your gauges in the same color. You can order the stitching in the same color. And then we also brought over a trim from the 911 Dakar with the Ceramica finish. So it's like this white matte finish. It feels slightly cold to the touch. And it's a really cool trim. And then, of course, you can get in yellow, because some people like yellow. Aero kit. A lot of you guys like Aero kit, so that has been continued to be offered and actually enhanced. The new Aero kit has carbon fiber touches. If you'd like, you can also order that in body color. You can order in black. So there are actually multiple variants of Aero kit now, depending on what kind of look you want. But how do you know the T-hybrid is working? So we were very lucky. We just flew over one of the first 911 GTSs to headquarters. Unfortunately, the day the truck came to pick up that car was the day before that flight landed, so I'm sorry we didn't bring the GTS up to you guys. You'll just have to visit us down in Atlanta to see the car. But it's one of the first cars we have internally. And I was very fortunate to put the first couple hundred miles on the car just this past week. And if you don't tell someone that it's hybrid, honestly, it drives just like a normal 911. The engine is always on when the car is moving. You do not drive an all-electric. There is no electric range. There is no plug. The hybrid powertrain is completely self-contained. From the moment you hit that start button, it actually is amazing. This motor has no starter motor. So instead, it actually uses a 40 kilowatt electric motor to start the engine, just like our plug-in hybrid models. What this means is just like a 918, it immediately roars to life. It doesn't crank over. It just, boom, it just goes. I don't know if anyone's been at the races and heard the 963 coming out of the pits, going from the electric to the V8 pumping up. It sounds like that when you start the car when you're parking. It's incredible, that sound. So when you're actually on the road, you have these new displays to show you where the hybrid powertrain is coming up. So in the upper left, you see the throttle. When you give it a little gas, the gray bar comes up showing where the gas engine is coming up. And then the blue bar comes up showing where the turbocharger and electric motor are actually giving you a little bit of extra boost, whether it be in torque, whether it be in boost pressure. The rest of the display is also really cool. Even a standard Carrera model gets the rest of the display. It shows friction circles for how much grip each tire is kind of experiencing. You've got a PSM light, you've got oversteer, understeer indicators, and you've got wheel slip indicators. All this, of course, can be logged in your Porsche Track Precision app if you get it. When you swipe over one to the right, you finally get a tire temperature display with actual numbers. So you can actually see what tire temperatures you have when you have your summer tires on. Really cool display. You can show that in your instrument cluster as well. Hey, when you swipe over one more, then you get just a historical about 10-15 second graph of what you have been doing in terms of either horsepower or torque. Again, the gray line is the combustion engine, and the blue line is electric power. What's interesting is you'll see that the blue line varies quite a bit, even if you're doing steady state throttle. It's filling in areas such as, you know how fast the PDK shifts already, but inherently you're moving the engine into a different power band when you come to another gear, right? The electric motor actually gives it just a small little torque blip to smooth out that kind of different power delivery. And it's an absolutely seamless transition at how the powertrain delivers all of this torque and all of this horsepower. And then to the very last display, you will see the state of charge of the battery, the temperature of the battery, and then also how much power both the e-boost and the motor are contributing. The state of the charger battery, you don't have to worry about it. The car manages it all on its own. Same with the temperature. It's just being displayed for all us, nerdy and geeky people that are really curious about what's happening, right? In normal sport mode, it'll vary quite a bit. It'll drain itself quite low down. It'll charge itself up whenever it needs to. In Sport Plus, it really targets trying to charge it up to 100% and give you the maximum performance available. And in fact, one of the big key things, a lot of people park their 911s in certain months, right? They don't drive it every day. And maintaining the battery is always a question, right? One benefit is having now two batteries, a 12-volt battery and a high-voltage 400-volt. You have a bit more energy capacity. So before you store the car for over a couple months, the owner's manual actually instructs you to just quickly put in Sport Plus mode before you go store it and just run the engine for just a minute or two, and you'll see that battery come up on a high voltage to nearly 100 very quickly. The battery just recommends over 80, and then you're able to park the car for a longer period of time. Of course, if you really, as always, feel free to put a Charger Mat Pro on it. That's unchanged. Just, hook it up to the terminals in the front trunk area, and you can maintain the 12-volt that way too. But you have the additional high voltage because the 12-volt no longer starts the engine. The 400-volt is what powers the electric motor to start the engine. The 12-volt is only powering on the electronics. Very crazy powertrain here. Question, are we doing the mic for the questions? Oh, yeah, the question was, how do you charge a 400-volt? That's exactly how easy it is. You just start the car, put it in Sport Plus, and it charges it. Yeah, and you just idle it for like a minute or so, and it's already done. It's really quick.
It won't be dead.
Yeah, the question is if it'll be dead. No, no. It's just like the 12 volt. It's a very slow drain rate over time. So very low maintenance requirements. Very simple. Question in the back.
Yeah, so what happens if the guy stores it for like 9 months and the high voltage dies? There's a way for the end user to charge it, or is it tow it to the Porsche dealer with a special battery charger?
The instructions actually say the authorized Porsche dealer is definitely ideal if the car is truly, truly dead. But just like any other 911, if you jump over the 12 volt, you are able to usually start it. It's only when the 400 volt is truly dead,
Yeah.
but that takes a long, long time for that to happen. But we know sometimes it does happen. So the 12 volt to 400 volt converter actually goes both ways. It'll convert 12 volt to 400 volt and 400 volt to 12 volt. So even with the standard battery maintainer a dealer uses to program the standard Carrera model, a Taycan, anything, they just put that 12 volt on, and it'll actually give a little bit of charge back into the 400 volt and allow the engine to start. So very robust system. They definitely thought of this. Any other questions for now before we keep going into this?
How much size is the battery?
Oh, yes, I'll get into that one. Don't worry about that.
And weight.
We got this. We got this. Before those numbers, why are we doing this? It's getting increasingly competitive in terms of performance. We see a lot of competitors start putting plug-in hybrids, start turning e-performance powertrains into cars, and honestly, the EVs on the road, we all know they're super fast. I mean, just look at the Taycan Turbo S in the other room. Absolutely amazing launch control. And it's kind of embarrassing when a Tesla Model 3 can come up to your stoplight and embarrass you in your 911, right? So you got to keep up to some extent. This is where just a little touch of electrification while keeping the emotionality of a good engine is really cool. And then emissions. We all are kind of worried about emissions. Even with the current changes in the political environment, emissions regulations are still getting more strict. And one of the big things is you have to keep Lambda 1. For anyone who doesn't know what Lambda 1 means, there is a perfect air-to-fuel ratio, right? 14:7:1. And you cannot exceed that anymore in terms of running the engine rich. Because it used to be we can dump extra fuel in it, keep the cats a little bit cooler, get that extra little boost in power, but you can't do that anymore. The emission regulations are preventing all of this extra fuel enrichment that sometimes the old engine needed to get to horsepower levels. So this is why the T-hybrid was introduced, to bring it to this next horsepower level while still keeping it under emission regulations and actually improve even the way the power delivery is done. It's actually really cool. So deep dive into the powertrain. So it's got quite a few different components. One of the cool things is we are unlike competitors where the Corvette E-Ray does a front axle that is completely electrified. We don't do that. This powertrain is completely integrated into itself with an electric motor actually located between the engine and the PDK. So that means we're still able to offer a rear-wheel drive Carrera GTS. We don't force all-wheel drive for this electrified powertrain. That's one of the unique things, because a lot of competitors going to all-wheel drive, like the AMG GT with the E-Performance, that's all-wheel drive mandatory, but not to us. So where the old 12-volt went on the Carrera models, and current Carrera models still have the 12-volt in the same place, is now the high-voltage battery. So that's actually located in the front axle in the same spot. It's about the same size, so it's very easy to place it there. That keeps the weight balance actually very similar to the old car, very within 1%. And then in the back is actually where your high voltage electronics are. The engine is actually more compact than ever before because we were able to take out a lot of accessories. So the high voltage componentry is just located right on top. And in the back, for any of you guys really with a clever eye, that number 1 right there, you see with that black tubes you see there, that is actually an air filter very similar in design to the GT2 RS. So it's got 5 different tubes and actually improves the air intake flow even more. So it's actually GT technology being integrated into here. Underneath it, you have, of course, a gigantic intercooler. Like I was talking about, all that hot air being ducted straight down around the exhaust. And then that one turbo you see just right over here, just to the right side. And then the left side is only reserved for just a big, nearly 7-gallon muffler. So, got to keep those noise regulations in check as well. So yeah, that is the overall powertrain. Deep dive into the turbo. So we all kind of know how turbochargers work, right? You've got, exhaust gases spinning a turbine and compressing intake air. So inherently, you need exhaust gases flowing to get your boost pressure up. But that's where the innovation here, to put just an electric motor in between the shaft of the intake and the compressor turbines, so that you can always spin down or spin up the shaft whenever you need to. So this is just a little 20 kilowatt electric motor. It's not much, but that's all you need to build all that boost pressure. The other side effect is this turbo has no wastegate. It never dumps all that compressed air out to the atmosphere. Instead, it uses an electric motor and recovers all that energy. I mean, why would you want to waste energy, right? You've made it. Why waste it? You can actually draw some of that power back, both from the compressed air and exhaust gases. Sometimes you're, just on light throttle, not in boost. You still have exhaust gases flowing, right? It can actually recover energy back from those exhaust gases and charge either the battery, or sometimes power flows straight from this to the electric motor. And you're going to be like, does that make sense? It actually makes sense because sometimes the engine is not in its optimal torque position. So you're able to give torque via the electric motor instead of the engine itself and run at a higher RPM. This is an absolutely incredible powertrain. This technology being derived after our years of experience on the plug-in hybrids, on the 918 Spider, they have really refined this to a whole nother level. Again, driving this for a couple hundred miles, I was just absolutely blown away. It's actually really day-to-day, the responsiveness is incredible. It's more like a big bore V8 in terms of the low-end torque and just instant on, just giving it a little bit of throttle, versus an actual turbocharged car. So really, really cool. And then the E-motor. Like I was talking about the plug-in hybrid experience, this is very similar to the Panamera technology. It's actually a shared transmission with the 8-speed PDK and the Panamera. So we also share the way the e-hybrid motor is put into it. So for this, of course, it's a little lower power. So it's only 40 kilowatts, only 53 horsepower. Peak, it can even give a little bit more, but it's really the torque. 220 pound-feet instantaneously from this. Imagine this added onto the engine and launch control. Just hold on. This is Turbo S levels of launch from the previous generation. Again, like I was saying, absolutely no electric driving. This will not propel itself by itself. This is, again, very low horsepower motor. The engine is on when it's moving. So, yeah. And the battery, those crucial numbers we were talking about. We didn't want to add too much weight. The battery is only about 60 pounds. That's not very much different than a lead acid battery. It's only 1.9 kilowatt hours in gross capacity. And for anyone that knows, I mean, like that Macan EV behind you, that's a 100 kilowatt hour battery. Same thing with the Taycan. And the plug-in hybrids, that's a 25 kilowatt hour battery. This is 1.9. This is tiny. Absolutely tiny. But what they've done is select cells that have amazing charge and discharge characteristics. So designed for very quick, pulses of power and very quick charging from the turbo, coming off boost and putting power in here. It is designed to absorb and output energy really quick. So it's more like, a small sponge. It's got 216 round cylindrical cells, and it actually does this in 108 series and 2 parallel configurations. So it's just under a 400 volt system, about 389 volts. So we have a question over here.
What's the estimated lifetime?
Ask again, please.
What's the estimated lifetime?
The estimated lifetime, so number one, it is fall under the 8-year, 100,000 mile warranty of any electrified powertrain here for the battery. But the estimated lifetime is the lifetime of the vehicle. It is the lifetime of 911. This is not a normal replaceable part. Of course, it will wear over time, but notice, we're only using 1.47 of the 1.9 kilowatt hours. There is a buffer. And for the effective lifetime of how most 911s will ever be used, this is not a wear item. This is not like your 12 volt where in 5-6 years, time to replace it. This is a essentially lifetime item here. So hopefully that answers the question. Yeah, so very small battery. The 12 volt's been relocated because, again, this is in the front trunk area now, to the rear shelf, right behind the rear seats. This, again, keeps the balance a little bit better. But don't worry, the jump terminal is the exact same spot, unchanged. You can still maintain the battery off the front trunk area, so instructions don't change much there. onto that chart I was talking about earlier. I'm not going to go into every single one. There's no pop quiz at the end. Don't worry. What it really is just saying is that the powertrain is so well tuned that in every different mode, there's different ways of all the different systems interacting. Sometimes we're in the highway and just cruising at, 85, 87 miles an hour in, certain parts of Texas, let's just say. It's able to actually, while you're steady state throttle at those speeds, put energy back into the system in either electric motor or the high voltage battery. So you might think, oh, I thought the engine was working, but it's working in various different ways. Obviously, off the line, the E-turbo and the electric motor both come up to really get you that instantaneous response. And even on the track, the speed at which it recuperates is incredible. I was fortunate enough, they took us to the global launch training in Mallorca. I know, very hard job. Mallorca, beaches, everything. And there's a tiny little track there. And they gave us a very good number of track laps on the new GTS, and we were blown away. The powertrain, again, completely transparent. You just drove it like you stole it, and that battery just stayed charged. We were really on it. Even on the straightaways, you could see the battery barely discharged. And by the time you were braking and coming back out from the next corner, you were back up again another 10%. It is amazing how fast it responds. Short of being Jörg Burmeister on the Nürburgring, you're never even going to see it in the teens or even the single digits. But even then, it's only on the back straightaway where you might get down to the low numbers. And by the time you're back in at the end of that straightaway and braking, you're back up enough to boost you through the next couple corners. It is incredible how fast this powertrain is able to recover that kind of energy levels. Unlike certain competitors where the moment the battery is drained, it takes miles and miles of driving to charge it all back up, this powertrain is really designed for endurance use. We have 963 hybrids running around. Remember 919 was a hybrid. We have a lot of that racing heritage in endurance racing, and the same with the hybrid powertrains. And that experience is very clear in this powertrain. And weight. Everyone's always worried about weight. So the powertrain barely adds 103 pounds over the last GTS, and that includes the new rear axle steering that was made standard. You get a lot of performance extra for the weight. And compared to competitors, the AMG GT is now 4,700 pounds with electrified powertrain. We are so far above. Even same thing with the Corvette. You might notice they advertise dry weights. There's a reason for that. We advertise the true wet curb weight with a driver, and when you're ready to go with the car, the real weights of the car, and it's still very, very low. Now, of course, like I talked about, if you're still looking for the most puristic experience, we have like a Carrera T model, right? That weighs 3,300 pounds. That's the lightest Carrera in the model. For those that want it, that's why we still offer the non-electrified powertrains. We are offering a 911 suited to everyone's tastes and needs. Where some of that weight comes from, I talked about like the electric motor, the drive being added, the chassis and body, like I talked about, we had to add the rear axle steering, some chassis reinforcements, and then some of the battery weight. But again, very low weight increase over the last GTS. And weight, because it's such an important topic, everyone's always nerdy about, how much does the wheel weigh? The 911 GTS wheel is forged and it only weighs 20 pounds in the front and 27 pounds in the rear. It's a very lightweight wheel set. Now, the next lightest weight wheel is basically the wheels you see on that Cartagena yellow car there. Those are the exclusive design wheels you see, and also a forged wheel. For those of you guys that don't want center locks, or you're on the Carrera S and you want to choose the lightest weight wheel possible, the Carrera exclusive design is 23 pounds in the front and 30 pounds in the rear. And there's now a new option where we actually replace a lot of the insets. It's actually a different wheel structure, so a little metal was eliminated, and it's a carbon fiber design with a 22 pound in the front and 28 pounds in the rear. Very lightweight forged wheel, available on the configurator for pretty much all Carrera models. Highly recommend that if you're looking for some of the lightest wheels. What's funny is a lot of people love, RS Spider design, kind of like the old BBS designs. Cool looking wheel, really hard to wash and clean. So I say this from experience, as I think some of the chuckles indicate, some of you guys detail your own wheels, huh? Yeah. You know the pain. Funny enough, that's also one of our heaviest wheels at 26 pounds nearly in the front and 32 pounds in the rear. So, there are weight penalties there. Just keep that in mind. But for those of you that say, this is still not enough, I want even more weight savings. We all know rotational mass, unsprung mass, all that weight, it multiplies, right? We now offer a brand new lightweight wheel from Porsche Accessories. So our wonderful partners at Manthey actually built a wheel factory in the Black Forest just outside the Nürburgring to build these special wheels. So on all 911 models, both 9921 and 9922, you can now order these new lightweight wheels that save almost 17 pounds per wheel set. Even over that GTS wheel I just showed you. These are very competitive even in the aftermarket wheel world. They do this, of course, this is a forged wheel, and then they've got this 3D CNC machine that do these cutouts on the sides of the spokes to further lighten these wheels. Available, again, like I said, both in center lock and five lug for all the Carrera models. So if you're really looking for those weight savings and get a Porsche wheel, this is the wheel again. And of course, what would it be without a little bit of embossed Porsche logo at the bottom? The details. Yeah. And then finally, the pinnacle of the current 9922 model range, the new 911 GT3. One of the earliest times we released it, and the first time that they released both the GT3 wing car and the touring package at the same time. We really want to get this car out there. We know there are a lot of people waiting for GT3s. So this car was really sped up in development and released very on in the 992 life cycle. Very much unchanged, same 502 horsepower. Again, some of the modifications are for the emissions with the particulate filter and everything, which is why the torque number you see is a little bit down there. But they did compensate, and I'll show you what they did. 0 to 60 are very much unchanged. The only reason these are different is the wing car, of course, comes standard with PDK. The touring car comes standard with manual, and it's optional, no cost on both to switch between the two. How do you tell it's a new one? Like I said earlier, no turn signal, nothing at the bottom. Instead, you have this cool new blade design. You get carbon fiber, body color, a couple different designs, and all that's integrated up to the top. Otherwise, a lot of this is kind of carryover look, a little bit of an updated wheel. The rear, you get this more aggressive kind of rear fascia area, and that's kind of how you recognize the new GT3. But the big news, touring package. There are now rear seats available. For those of you that want a naturally aspirated flat six motor that goes at 9,000 RPM and you want to stick the kids in the back and have them lose hearing, great place to put them. Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of people we know have been asking for it. I really don't know who's trying to use them, but hey, they're finally available. But what we had to do was, of course, the bucket seats don't fold, right? So how do you get in the back? So this is why, for the first time in over 10 years, we finally have a new full bucket seat. If you remember, the current bucket seat that are being used in the Carrera models, that was introduced on the 918 Spider. We've been using the same seat ever since. So finally, after many years of development, they create this new folding bucket seat, still very lightweight, and with a really cool new design. And finally, it comes standard with seat heating. Yeah. You'd be surprised how many people ask for that. The other cool new thing, the headrest pad actually comes out to accommodate for helmets because the backrest still doesn't adjust. We all remember people complaining, oh, I put a helmet on and I'm kind of looking downwards now. The helmet pad, actually, the headrest pad pops right out and your helmet goes right in there. So for track use, you finally have a more comfortable driving position even with the new bucket seats. So really cool. And of course, in case you don't know, there's a giant red arrow pointing at the button. We have a question over here if the microphone is somewhere there. I'm going to stall while Damon walks all the way up there and hands over the microphone.
Can you get the carbon fiber roll cage in the U.S. yet?
No. Unfortunately, the carbon fiber roll cage is still not homologated for U.S. sales, so sorry. Any other questions for now? Oh, we got two questions in the upper row. If Damon will, get his steps in for the day at, already 9:40 a.m. And first question here.
You mentioned the particulate filter.
Yes.
That's not required in the U.S. yet, is it?
It's not required yet, but very shortly it will be. Because we can't update every single year, right? So this car is designed to last a couple years, and there are still more stringent requirements in terms of particulate emissions, which is why the particulate filter is installed for the U.S.
But the particulate filter is not...
It is coded, and it is active now.
Oh, it is?
It is now active. It is monitored, and it will determine the soot load. It'll figure out when it needs to regenerate, if you will. But that really means just drive it like a Porsche, and normally you don't even need to worry about it.
So if you replace it with a regular exhaust, you've got to somehow program it to ignore that?
I can't speak to how you do aftermarket and everything, and emissions are a touchy topic. Let's talk some other time about this, especially not in front of a camera.
On slide 46,
Wow.
On the
we
chart.
Really, a memory
In the
there.
upper right,
Uh-huh.
deceleration and braking with the internal combustion engine
Yes.
inactive, does that mean it turns off or it's just not providing propulsion?
So that's only just at the lowest, like 5 mile an hour. Kind of like high ends, the engine will just cut off right before you come to a full stop. So you are not actually putting your foot on the accelerator. You're not accelerating. You're just kind of coasting to a stop. So that's all that's meaning. Yeah. But again, like I said, anytime you give it throttle and you're trying to get forward momentum, the engine is on. So yeah, GT3, very cool. Weissach package available for the very first time on the GT3 wing car, and a new lightweight package available. We actually take a lot of GT3 RS parts for it. So like the door panel with the lightweight touches to it, and with the lightweight package, for all of us that were not able to get a 911 ST for some reason, you get the 911 ST shifter. So you actually get the little lower shifter. You get this cool little light bow, so lightweight construction badge on the lower area. And yes, it does stay in German, even if you can buy American GT3. So, start learning a couple German words. And the other thing they did was adjust the final drive ratio to accommodate for that slightly lower torque. So it is now 8% shorter overall for both the PDK and manual transmissions. So that means the car is even a little bit more responsive in every gear, and you get a couple more shifts in. For everyone that always complains the gears are too long, there's been a little bit of accommodation for that. Other things they took over from the GT3 RS. For anyone that was here from our presentation, we showed off some of these aero suspension bars that the geniuses in Weissach developed to create more downforce on the front axle. That's been carried over to the GT3 now. And the pivot point's been moved forward to actually reduce the amount of dive you have under braking, as if there was so much dive to begin with on a GT3. So they've really tweaked the small little things, including the end bump stops of the suspension. So you actually get a little more of the actual kind of suspension travel, if you will, rather than hitting a harder bump stop. So a little bit more of a linear travel for those of you that, run over the curbs every time at the track days. Even the steering has been retuned to really accommodate for the way the tires wear, different speeds, and different temperatures. So the on-center feel is even more positive, as if the double wishbone wasn't giving it enough already. And the new wheels, again, like I said, more lightweight, 1.7 kilos actually cut off with this new lightweight standard wheel design, and magnesium wheels available now with this whole Weissach and lightweight package, just like a ST. When you order that Weissach package, you get that bottom shear panel underneath the engine, all in carbon fiber, and the anti-roll bar and the drop links. So you actually get a decent amount of weight savings, almost 48 pounds if you want all of that weight savings. That actually makes it almost as light, if not lighter, than certain configurations of the last GT3. So the weights are very, very comparable. So that is really just GT3 in a nutshell. It's as great as ever. And all the 9922 variants we released so far. We're not done yet. We're just at the tip of the iceberg. We're just starting off. We have lots coming in this year and the coming years for 911 variants. The timeless design never stops amazing. The driving feel, better than ever. And the personalization. For those of you that want your pink outlines on the seats, man, we really offer all the personalization. Just one final word, because it's all about all two-door sports cars. 718 remains unchanged, and get it while it lasts. The best time to buy a Porsche was yesterday. The second best time is today. So the moment you get a chance, and you're on the fence, you really need to get it today before the car is discontinued later this year. So definitely enjoy the last of it while it lasts. The full model lineup is available from Spider RS, GT4 RS, to the GTS 4.0 with the flat six, all with the manual transmission, the GTS 4.0. All of that is still available. So I challenge everyone when they get home, as if you don't do it enough already, to go to the configurator. We all know the wives complain. It's like, how many hours are you spending on this? Are you ordering another one? No, I'm just building my 30th saved one, you know. But build it. We've updated the configurator a lot. Our team, one of the persons on the team in particular, has spent a lot of time helping refine the text, working with the colleagues in Germany to update things like the 360 configurator. The 360-degree button, if you've never pushed it, you're missing out. It is almost photorealistic now. It actually connects to a server online, live renders it, and sends it over to your computer so you can actually see every option in painstaking detail, just like this brand new paint-disabled Sean Peach car with a Bordeaux red interior and yellow seat belts. Everyone's ordering this one, right? Yeah? Yeah. So yeah, with that, that concludes our presentation here for 9922.